Hi, thanks for checking out this video tutorial. This is the photo manipulation that we're going to be working on in this video. And this is the second of a two-part series I've done. The first was I had the sniper going into the fog, disappearing, and going out to complete his mission. And this is the other side of that where he's completed his mission and is coming out through the fog and heading home. So that's kind of the inspiration here. The soldier is actually a 1/6 scale soldier model that's fully articulated that I photographed. And I'll be providing a link where you can download the photograph of the sniper. And hopefully you can find some similar images that I've used here in the background if you want to create something that looks similar to this. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to bring in my foreground. And the reason I'm bringing in my foreground before my background is that I want to get rid of quite a bit of this foreground before. So I'm just going to fit this to the screen. Hit check. I'm going to add a layer mask here. Then I'm going to go to my gradient tool and make sure this is set to black to white, that it's selecting the black to invisible here, and that this is selected. And then what I'm going to do is just start drawing lines, and that's going to start coloring that mask and removing the background. And I kind of like doing it this way just because this feathers this better than I can do it by hand with a brush. But you could certainly just do this with a brush if you wanted. Something like that. Okay, now I'm going to click on my bottom layer here and bring in my background. Size it to fit the screen. Hit check. Now what I'm going to do is I'm coming up to my foreground and I'm going to select the or change the blending mode to multiply. And the reason I do that is it just kind of helps bring in the color tone and some of the textures of the background layer, and just helps them kind of blend better. You'll kind of see how the coloring, the tonality helps blend together doing that. And then I'll finish it off by doing this by hand. Have my brush, everything set to 100, soft brush black, and then I'm just going to remove a bit more of this background. Something about like that. I think that actually looks pretty good right here. So now it just kind of looks like this road is rising out of the forest, and the sniper's taking the road to head home. Okay, so now I'm going to add a color balance just to start getting this into the color range that I want the overall look to look like, which is kind of a bluish green with kind of a yellow highlight to it. And so I'm going to add some cyan here, add just a touch of green, add a touch of blue to the midtones, then to the shadows. Going to add again some cyan, a little bit of magenta, down to about 5, and quite a bit of blue, up around 27. And then the highlights, again, I'm going to add some cyan, some magenta, about 24 here. And I'm really going to add quite a bit of yellow because I want to drive those highlights to that kind of yellowish tone, right around 40, 42, something like that. And you can see that that changes that color tone a lot. It's added a bit of contrast. It's made a little more green and yellow in tone, which is kind of what I was going after. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in our soldier. And I want him just a little centered of right, maybe scale him down just a little bit. Something about like that. Okay, now I'm going to go into Camera Raw Filter and going to change his coloring and temperature to help him fit better. It was already a smart filter. I would have clicked convert to smart filter if it wasn't already that way. And then I'm going to go to Camera Raw Filter. And I'm going to go to the basics here. And I'm going to drop the temperature down to around 2930. And the tint down around 12, 10, 12, 13, something like that. And then I'm going to go down into the color grading, and I'm going to set all of these around the 10 o'clock position. Okay, let's take a look. And that helps him look quite a bit better. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to continue making him fit in, as I'm going to add a hue adjustment layer, and I'm going to make it a clipping mask. So I'm going to hit Alt, come up between the layers and click, and that will make it so these adjustments only impact him. And I'm just going to make this slightly towards the green. I'm going to drop the saturation quite a bit and darken him up quite a bit. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to come up to the mask. Make sure my brush is set to black. I'm going to drop the opacity a bit down around, say, 66 here. And then I'm going to paint back in some of that original color. And this just will kind of be where this color's coming in from kind of this side and creating sort of this rim light on him. Make it so he takes this, I'll do still a little on the outside edge here, but make it more dramatic on the side where that beam's going to be a bit stronger. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's go below the sniper and add a bit of a shadow. And I'm going to drop this opacity just a bit more. And you know, it's a fairly dark image, so the shadow doesn't have to be very dramatic, just because it'd be a good, nice, soft shadow. We can kind of kick that off like. Something along those lines. Maybe just drop the saturation down a little bit. Something like that. That looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this fog. And I'm going to hit X, change my brush to white. I'm going to drop this down really low to about 6. And then I'm just going to start painting here on this foreground just to give it sort of that little bit of haze that will kind of help tie in, kind of do it heavier along these edges here where it's more against the forest. Something like that. And it's fairly subtle, but you can see that it adds a pretty cool effect. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to call this light. Make sure my brush is on white. I'm going to go up to 100%, and I'm just going to create, just paint a dot here. And then I'm going to hit Control T, and then I'm going to press the Control button, and that will allow me to distort that dot into more of a light ray that we want kind of showing through that fog. And that will help sell the lighting here on our soldier. And then I'm going to actually duplicate that just to make that have a bit stronger effect. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a fog layer over the top of the whole image. I want to colorize this, so I'm going to add an adjustment, make sure it's a clipping mask, and I want the hue to be, colorize it, want the hue to be 180, right around there. Saturation to be around 90, around 50. And the lightness down, making it pretty dark, down around 65 or so. Okay, and then I'm going to set the blending mode to screen, not on that. On the actual fog layer, hit that to screen, and then I'm going to lower that opacity down to around 35%. that will just kind of add that overall kind of haze to the overall image. Okay, so we're getting fairly close to being done with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stamp, which is I'm going to create a layer that combines all of the layers that we've created so far. And I'm going to do that by hitting Control, Alt, Shift, and E. And that's going to create this. Then I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to convert this to a Smart Filter. And then I'm going to go to Camera Raw Filter. And I'm going to go into the color grading and going to hit this about 2 o'clock. The shadows about 1 o'clock. And the highlights about 1 o'clock. Little more dramatic here by increasing that up a bit. Okay, so that is fairly close to being done. And this is the point where I like to, a lot of times, just experiment, a lot of times in Camera Raw and using other filters just to kind of enhance or change the look of this to my taste. And one of the things I do like to use is the Nik Collection Color Effects Pro. And I'm in the recipe section, and I'm going to come down here to this summer look, which just brings out kind of that green yellowish tone that I've been wanting to have for this image. And I'm sure you can create this just with normal standard Photoshop tools, but this is really makes it easy, and I really love the look of it. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And I'm really liking that. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Camera Raw and add a vignette. So I'm going to go to Effects, add a bit of a vignette here. And that finishes our photo manipulation. Hope you've enjoyed watching this. And if you haven't, check out the companion version of this. It has some different lighting techniques in it that I don't use in this one. And it could be interesting to you. So thanks again for watching.